Commission was requested, long story about what happened, and the Liquor Commission stepped up and did part of what I was asking for, to basically allow the liquor stores to promote identifying people who have problems with alcohol and getting them into treatment. So our state takes in $800 million a year from alcohol sales. What's not in that equation is the CDC's estimate that alcohol misuse, not just regular drinking, costs the state about $800 million a year if you count the highway costs, if you count the jail costs, the police costs, the health costs, and it's even higher if you count lost revenue. So I worry about relying on these sort of, products that the state says they're going to sell because they have an interest, and then turning around and basically promoting the same thing that they're saying the free market can't handle. Wonky enough?
My take is I'm 66, so I'm probably a little too old to get super and smoke pot. So I'm not gonna, but I'll tell you a story. There's a place on the Haverhill Blackstone line, and I remember them building. I said to my wife, I can't wait till that opens. That looks like it's gonna be a nice little restaurant. And it said Harvest Moon, and then I kept watching it, and then it became Canidates. So I said to my wife, we won't be going to eat this. I support Raymond Coalition up there in Raymond for the Youth for Drugs. I believe that if you start smoking pot and you graduate to cocaine and pills, and it's just a trickle effect. So I am not for it. I don't want my kids smoking pot. If they want to get it, let them go to the place in the Haverhill line. I don't think it's, when you think about it, and I know the governor was close to doing it, so you can get on 93, go in there and buy a bottle of Tito's and get a bag of pot, then get in the car and drive on the highway. I mean, that's pretty stupid, but that's what they were talking about doing. And Chuck Boss is a friend of mine, they talked about almost doing it, and they were gonna try and do it in only the state liquor stores. So like I said, you go on 93, get a bag of pot, a bottle of Tito's, that's real good for driving. So I am not for it, I don't care if they do it, I'm never gonna smoke it. I'm too old to be stupid, so I'm not for it.
So back when I was in the State House, they tried to pass it like they do every session. And what I found ironic was they said, we're going to pass this, but the first thing that we're going to do as part of the bill is we're going to put $25 million in the pot for addiction recovery. And I just thought, it's kind of crazy. For me, medical marijuana, I wouldn't question that. Again, that's between you and your doctor. It's not my business as a politician. I know some of the arguments for us having the distilleries here through the state are you could have a pure form of cannabis versus it possibly being laced with something that's out there on the street. Me personally, I'm not super comfortable with it at all. I've yet to hear of a sobriety test that can be done on the streets. I do worry that it's a gateway drug. I've been asked this question so many times though. Representing the 3 towns, if you all came to me and it was 90%, I guess it was 60%, right, with the 3 towns, and you felt very strongly, it's not about what I want, it's what you want. So I would consider it and look further into it. But if you're asking my knee-jerk reaction, I am 100% not comfortable with it.
Yeah, I agree. I would never vote to make it legal. I think it's a gateway drug, like Tom said. I don't like the criminalization of small amounts of pot. I think that goes way overboard. But I think people can get it everywhere. I think in a medicinal setting, I've known someone who actually, they used it. They used, I'll just stand up. I knew a family and their daughter had horrible seizures and they used medicinal marijuana and it worked for them. They were up in Maine, they weren't in New Hampshire. So anyway, I'm opposed to legalization of pot. So I know it has some medicinal help. I've heard veterans talk about it, that it's helped them with some of their trauma. If something like that could be investigated, but that's a whole different thing to me than legalizing marijuana.
So I think we have time for one more question. Michelle, it's yours.
This one is for John.
Oh, I'm so surprised.
You talked earlier about having open dialogue and working across the aisle and all that, and your TV commercial says that you're ready to work with anyone. You wrote an article entitled Community Development Moves Forward, Major Progress by Recreation Commission, which was published in a partisan publication only for Brentwood Democrats. If you are so willing to work with anyone, regardless of their political party, why wasn't that article provided to the Brentwood newsletter, whereby all Brentwood households with people of both parties or even unenrolled could have received that update rather than just members of one political party?
I really appreciate the question, and I am shocked that the Brentwood newsletter comes up tonight.
I am not the Brentwood newsletter, I'm speaking as an individual.
I'm
who
just
didn't get to see
being,
that
I'm being
article.
facetious, Michelle. So, look, I mean, I've been on the Brentwood Select Board for 4 years now. I'm well into my second term. And the issues with the Brentwood newsletter, I don't know how many dozens of times I've had to sit, or hours and of my life at the Brentwood Select Board talking about the Brentwood newsletter. For the last 4 years, just like I said when on my TV commercial, that sounds weird to say, but also when I said it more importantly tonight, I have my principles and my values, and I'm just like I did in the state senate, just like I've done for the last 4 years on the select board, I am always going to tell you where I stand. I've told the town of Brentwood where I stand on the Brentwood newsletter ever since the article "Racism: A White Man's Perspective" came out and was paid for by taxpayer funds. That I have been 100% clear and transparent. The fact that I do not believe that our tax dollars should go to pay a private entity to publish a newsletter. I just don't believe that. Now, I will be open and honest and listen, just like I have for the last 4 years about this. But I am also, we're not, some of us, we're not going to agree. But I'm never going to mislead you. And so when you are casting your ballot for executive council, that's what I would offer to you. I'm not going to tell you that I am in support of something that I'm not. And it's not going to go vice versa either. My door is always going to be open. My phone is always going to be on, and I don't care where I am on the planet. I will speak to constituents, I will fight for constituents, and I will fight for all of our towns to make sure that we get every ounce of support that we need. But the reality is that sometimes we're going to disagree, and when that happens, I am going to be honest with you.
So I'm a little disappointed that you would bring up that article all these years later and hang on to that, because we all have tried to move beyond that, and it's sad that you hang on to that. But the point was, you shared information about the Recreation Commission and what is happening, and you shared that with one segment of the population. And I don't understand why the select board is not sharing that information with the entire population.
Oh, I'm
In the
one member.
newsletter- In the newsletter that goes to everybody.
Sure.
Unless you've opted out. But
Do you
that's a
want-
forum, that's what the forum's for, and you're not sharing information. In fact, tonight's event wasn't shared in the Brentwood newsletter. That's disappointing, we could have had a lot more people here.
Well, that's on me,
No,
and and it's on the fact that it wasn't organized in time to share it in the Brentwood newsletter, so nobody is to blame for that other than me.
And
I'm going
and to answer, I guess, the last part of the question, look, I am one member of a 5-member board. I have zero power or influence by myself on the select board. So the select board can make the decision to share whatever they want as a vote, but as one person, I don't have any authority or action. I cannot take that action. But when an entity reaches out to me proactively, which the Common Sense Forum did, I was willing to put that together. They asked me to do it, and I said sure. So that's the answer.
So it is 9 o'clock,
And so we're going to wrap up our evening. I want to thank Janice and the library and the staff of the library for hosting us. I want to thank all of the candidates for coming out and for putting themselves out in the position to run for office. Thank you, Andy, for filming it, and thank you, Jim, who I think had to leave, for being my timekeeper. And thank all of you for coming and asking respectful and thoughtful questions. I think it was a really great dialogue. Have a nice night.